Special report on NEA Report tonight. And Officer Josh Trivett has been arrested for police brutality. He's a Cherokee Village police officer we've reported on a number of times here on NEA Report. Earlier in the year, we talked about it and showed the video where a man by the name of Randall Veazie, who was intoxicated at his house, was taken into custody and beaten unmercifully by police officers, including Josh Trivett. Trivett's wife is facing charges for embezzlement of $150,000 of a local business, and we reported on that last week too. Now we're reporting on the husband's charges, who was released from jail today. Yes, he was charged and released on his own recognizance. In other words, his bond was $0 for a felony charge of beating a man in police custody. Both Trivetts are facing charges now. We're going to talk about that next on NEA Report. We'll also be showing the video, at least some of it. Yes, it's got some language in it, so get ready. It's going to be a colorful episode of NEA Report. Here's the video that we've all seen, or at least most of us have seen that have watched NEA Report over the last few months. And for those of you who've not seen it, or for those of you who have, we're going to go through it one more time. This is body camera footage obtained exclusively by NEA Report from November of 2016. The camera's mounted on the body of Officer Josh Trivett. It's aimed up, as Officer Trivett is a portly individual. He's also now charged with a felony because of what happened both before this video, during it, and possibly afterwards too. In the video, several officers are looking at a man bloodied, beaten, and battered on the ground. The officers shining their flashlight, looking at the man as though he's a bug or some type of pest that is writhing out of control. With no humanity in their eyes or hearts, the officers beat the man unmercifully, to the degree that the man's face was shattered, to the degree that the man now suffers from PTSD. The man permanently disabled from what took place both in the video before it and after later in the evening. Even though the video is concealed at some points, which appears to be on purpose, and the camera is aimed up and away, you can hear several things in the video which are incriminating, including the officer himself admitting to slamming the suspect, and in a moment to himself that he probably did not realize would be broadcast later on the news, he celebrates slamming the man's, take a listen.
Slam his fucking ass.
Officer Josh Trivett was quite proud of himself that night for body slamming that suspect. He gave the man PTSD, and the man's permanently disabled, but Trivett's probably not too proud today because he was arrested today. He was arrested for the incidents that took place that evening. State police arrested the Cherokee Village police officer on suspicion of beating the suspect 2 years ago and laughing about it, just as you heard on camera. Josh Trivett, 44, was charged with second-degree battery today. It stems from a civil rights lawsuit filed in May, which we talked about before, but it's more than a civil rights issue. It's a criminal issue for Josh Trivett, who is facing felony charges. By the way, the officer has been placed on administrative leave and is no longer patrolling the streets of Cherokee Village as a police officer. We don't know if that's paid administrative leave or unpaid. It's probably paid because unless they say unpaid, that generally means they're going home with a vacation. The officer was arrested on that second-degree battery charge, a Class D felony. Now, a lot of stuff has taken place today in relation to this case, and there's a reporter at Area Wide Media that's a lot closer, both geographically but also just in her coverage of it, than I have been. That's Lauren Siebert with Area Wide Media, and we're going to get her on the phone in just a second to talk about this and to talk about her work in the case and what's developed today. The officer is, of course, facing a serious felony charge. It's a case that's being investigated by Special Prosecutor Jack McQuarrie out of Little Rock. And so we will see if any other charges come for the other officers involved in this. But for this officer in particular, he now will face the scales of justice for what he did, allegedly, to Randall Veazie, a man who suffered serious injuries that we'll talk about here in just a moment. First, let's talk to Lauren. We're joined on the phone right now by Lauren Siebert. She's a journalist in Sharp County, has been for a while, and she works at Area Wide Media. Thanks, Lauren, for taking a couple of minutes to talk to us today on a day where we're seeing a lot of breaking news in the case with Josh Trivett. So I know that you're one of the people that's covered this really since the day it began, or at least the earliest news coverage of it began. Can you tell us what you learned today as far as when the officer was arrested?
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed about 12:30. I looked at the mobile patrol app, and it was about 11:34, somewhere in there, that he had been posted as in custody.
I see. So we're talking about right around noon today. It's you guys publish for a Tuesday publication, I believe, right?
Yes, we go to press on Mondays, and we come out Tuesday and Wednesday, depending on your mail service provider.
So this was going to basically be coming down your pipeline last minute. I'm guessing you guys had to do a little bit of scrambling to get this in, right?
Yes, we did. We had our front set, and we rearranged that because this is such a big deal in Sharp County, and really not just Sharp County, but in the nation.
Sure.
You hear about cases like this, and in small towns you say, well, this will never happen here, until it does, and it has.
The officer was arrested on a felony charge, I believe. Was that correct?
Yes, that is correct. A warrant for his arrest was issued today by the Arkansas State Police for battery in the second degree, which is a Class D felony.
This is being handled by independent prosecutor in Little Rock, Jack McQuarrie, I believe, and it's not being handled by law enforcement in our area. Although I'm assuming they're assisting in some form.
It's my understanding that in June or possibly May of last year, our local prosecutor was made aware of the severity, the potential severity, the allegations of this situation, and so he chose to contact, the state, and so he requested that the state police take over, and ultimately Jack McQuarrie, who is a special prosecutor who's handled many cases in this area, was appointed, and today they issued the present finding of the results. That doesn't mean that there won't be more down the pipeline. There were several officers named in this report, in this warrant for arrest. However, no warrant was issued for any of them, and it does not appear presently that that's going to be the case.
Can you mention, or do you have that in front of you, the warrant?
I do not, but the officers who were at the Veazie home the night of the incident are he's no longer an officer, but reserve deputy with the Sheriff's Department, Jack Lowe, Henry Hamilton with the Highland Police Department. He wasn't at the residence, but met up with one of the officers later that evening at the emergency room after Veazie had sustained injury. Tom Rigsby with the Ash Flat Police Department, Colton Wilson with the Ash Flat Police Department, Craig Wiles, who is not yet an officer but is now a part-time, and then Josh Trivett.
So the only one that's been charged so far, at least as of today, is Josh Trivett.
Correct. And he is with the Cherokee Village Police Department.
Appreciate that. Now, you mentioned, this was unusual for me, because you mentioned he was actually charged today, not just arrested. They went forward with full charges. Is that right?
That is my understanding. The warrant for his arrest listed the charge of battery in the second degree, and this will come out in our paper this evening, but he's not currently in the Sharp County Jail.
He has been released based on what we know already. And are you understanding his bond to be having been set? Do you know what that's been set at?
I believe it was an OR. So it's my understanding that there was no financial transaction for his release.
Gotcha. So he didn't have to pay anything to get out of jail on second-degree battery, a felony, and he, which is probably good news because the Trivet family is currently working to offer a settlement to the family that owns the Music Pest Control business after embezzling $150,000. That would be an act that the wife would be suspected of. The husband, meanwhile, had no knowledge of it. Somehow, over 3 years, $50,000 extra a year coming into household income. That being the case, they're trying to financially settle that right now and having difficulty doing so, and at the same time having a felony charge now being brought against the other member of the household probably is making things a little bit financially difficult for them at the moment. I want to mention also, while we're talking here, Lauren, that you mentioned he was charged today and taken in for his first appearance. That's very rare. I think we both know that. I'm not, but it's very rare for that to happen because generally you're arrested and then you have to bond out, and then it's a couple of months before you would go and face the actual charging of the case. It appears that, well, I guess this has been set on the fast track, so to speak.
Well, he has court. His first appearance was today for his bond, which was the OR. His first appearance is September the 12th. And you mentioned his spouse, and I believe that she had also been continued to September.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's all coming down in the same month. Well, maybe we'll find out some more information about that. You mentioned to me when you were looking at the warrant, or when you were looking at the charges and stuff, you said you didn't know if there were going to be additional ones. Do you have any reason to believe that there might be no more charges out of this, or do we just not know?
I do not know, and I really don't want to speak out of turn, but
Sure.
Just based on reading the 9-page report, there was no strong indication to me that that would be the case. Now, I've been wrong in the past. I'll be the first to admit when I'm wrong, but I did check with the clerk's office this afternoon and to see if there were any other warrants issued, and there were none.
So this is the only one at the moment. Have you had a chance to talk to Mr. McQuarrie?
I have not. I did place a call to the prosecuting coordinator's office. You know, and Mr. McQuarrie, I know, is a busy guy. He handles a ton of cases across the state. He does return my calls when he can, but it doesn't seem like today was one of those days. Understood.
What can we look forward to learning in your report tomorrow? I know you've been working on this busy all day today. What are we going to find out more about?
You'll see that there's a difference between the civil suit that has been moved to federal court and his charges. Those are only related based on the initial incident. You know, so there'll be a recap of the details that led up to all of this, what happened the night of. And, you know, we are going to continue to follow this at Area Wide Media, and we'll do our best to keep folks up to date.
We appreciate you taking a couple of minutes to talk to us today on NEA Report. It's Lauren Siebert with Area Wide Media, and we'll be looking forward to reading a copy of your edition tomorrow morning, or I guess I should say late tonight. Hopefully there won't be any more stories to come out in between now and the time the printer, you know, gets it out.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Prosecutor Henry Boyce issued a surprising statement to NEA Report today about the case, but the statement was a no comment. He said, "I have no comment on that case. It's being handled by Special Prosecuting Attorney Jack McQuarrie." 3rd Judicial District Prosecuting Attorney Henry Boyce, of course, being the attorney that would cover Sharp County. So the incident resulted in serious injuries for the man who was attacked, Randall Veazie. He was intoxicated at his home that night when officers showed up, and the officers decided that Veazie was spitting at them, as they reported in the reports, of course, but it never was confirmed or seen on camera that Veazie had spit at them, and he actually denied it in camera in the footage that we showed you earlier. He said he never spit on him. What we do know is Randall suffered a broken mandible to the left side of his face, requiring surgery. Titanium plates and screws had to be inserted into his jaw and face. His mouth was wired shut for about a month. He suffered a fracture on the right side of his skull and a completely shattered TMJ. Every bone on the right side of his jaw and face was shattered, not able to be repaired ever. That's the same side of the face Rigsby used the mag light on. He had a large laceration on his chin, which the surgeon made an even larger laceration on to go inside so that they could place the titanium plates inside of his face. He now has a 7 or 8 inch scar across his chin. An infection set in after that happened. He had an allergic reaction to the titanium, which caused an infection. The surgeon then had to go back in through the infected hole and clean the wound out. 3 more high-dose rounds of antibiotics, and he finally healed. His right ear is not at 100%. His nose was shown to be fractured. His left jaw not even 60%. He has trouble chewing, eating, talking. When he's chewing, it sounds like he's chewing hard candy. Those are the bones inside of his jaw grinding against each other. The popping is just awful. He's still receiving speech therapy. He was diagnosed with PTSD 3 months ago and has memory problems badly. Neurological issues, obviously, from being beaten in the head with a mag light. He takes medications for the mental and PTSD pain and non-narcotic pain meds, too. He has fainting spells, I'm told, and not one neurologist from anywhere in Arkansas will see him because of what was a pending lawsuit and now a filed lawsuit, according to the family. He's never had any medical or mental issues before he was assaulted, I'm told. He rarely went to the doctor. Now he goes once a week. The incident completely changed the lives of those involved. The couple, the Veazie couple, have been together for a long time. And it's a tough case for them because while the officers, such as the one you're looking at, and the other officers involved who've not been charged yet, including Rigsby, while they went home that night and went about their lives as though nothing they had done was wrong or ever happened, one man would never again be the same, Randall Veazie. Randall Veazie was slammed in the kitchen while handcuffed. While handcuffed by Josh Trivett, this coward that you're looking at, waited until he handcuffed someone to slam him. This coward that probably couldn't run 10 feet without having a heart attack. Completely abused his police authority and almost killed a man, just to be honest. He slammed him, and then he snatched him off the kitchen floor and slammed him again, I'm told. He alleges that Veazie spit. There was blood splatter on the sidewalk and grass from him being slammed and beaten. He was dragged to the cruiser, driven to the Alps, where they dragged him out of the cruiser, which is what you saw. According to one of the statements, it says it looked like a deer had been slaughtered by the officers. One of the officers even said that Randall Veazie was complying and posed no threat. The way things appear, Randall Veazie suffered a broken jaw out front by Trivett and then blacked out, ended up at the Alps parking lot, dragged out of the cruiser, and was assaulted by Rigsby. It's the blood out front of that, and the officer in the background saying something about his car being full of blood shows that something had taken place, of course, before then. I've seen a few of the photos. They're very difficult for me to pass along. I'm not because of the graphic nature, but simply because that it's tough to see the wounds in them. They're blurry. Veazie's surgeon said it was caused by blunt force trauma, his injuries. The question is, this is one incident that we found. One incident on camera. How many other times has this happened involving this officer and involving the other officers, too, that were there? I really hope not just one officer is going to be charged out of this because, quite frankly, every officer that was in that group that didn't step up and stop it should be facing some type of disciplinary action. Trivett is no longer an active police officer as of right now because he's been placed on administrative leave. It's probably paid. but he's still not been fired, and he's been an officer for 2 years after this happened. His wife is charged with embezzling $150,000, $50,000 a year from a business, Music Pest Control, that Trivett claimed he had no idea that she was doing. Worst cop ever. Can't even tell his wife stealing $50,000 a year. He claimed he didn't know where he was getting the money to buy a new race car, have car payments paid, student loans paid. He didn't know where all that money was coming from. Must have been coming out of the sky, right? Yeah, right.
What the fuck is wrong with people, man?
This is a photo of the bottom of the jaw of Randall Veazie after some of the injuries that he sustained, the endless hospital visits. As mentioned, there was an injury around his chin or jaw or sort of above his neck that was several inches, 7 or 8 inch scar. It was mentioned. And it wasn't just that they had to go through and use that scar to put in the titanium plates, but he actually suffered an infection. And that, to the titanium, an allergic reaction took place, and he had to have additional surgeries and have that cleaned out. Just the amount of suffering that he went through is unfathomable. At the same time, the police officers involved in this, all of them except for one, have had no charges come about it, have had to face no justice over this. Veazie will be disabled for the rest of his life. His injuries will never be fully healed or gone. And the officers that perpetrated this will probably not face consequences of any serious nature. Because even the officer that got charged today got out with no bond paid for a felony, for breaking the law while being a law enforcement officer. At what point do we say, you're a cop, you should know better, versus you're a cop, so we understand that you make mistakes? Ask yourself that. Because if it's ever you or your family that suffers police abuse, you'll wish you had held them to a higher standard.
Family Medical Clinic of Walnut Ridge and Bono are your neighborhood healthcare providers, and we're now accepting new patients. We know you have a tight schedule, so we're here 6 days a week at both locations from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Walk-ins are welcome. In Walnut Ridge, stop by 1045 West Main Street or call us to make an appointment, 886-8300. In Bono, we're on Highway 63 North or call 930-9990. Walnut Ridge Family Medical Clinic and Bono Family Medical Clinic, here for you when you need us.
Time for a look at your new Wave Wireless weather forecast, home of the $49 iPhone screen repair. Glad you're in with us tonight, 2 minutes before 7 o'clock at NEA Report. Stan Morris here with you on an evening where we're probably going to see a clear sky tonight. Probably not going to see many more raindrops across NEA this evening, but we're not done with them yet for this week. A low tonight, 74. Tomorrow, 40% chance for thunderstorms, mainly in the afternoon, with a high around 92. It's going to be nasty tomorrow. Probably going to be a humid day, I bet. It looks like tomorrow night, expect more showers and thunderstorms. On Wednesday, they're likely as well. More thunderstorms with a high around 87. You may see up to half an inch of rain possible on Wednesday, so that's where we're going to start to see. In fact, it looks like Tuesday night may see a half an inch of rain too. So between Tuesday night into Wednesday, you're going to probably see a little bit of areas, at least with some rising water, maybe a little bit of localized flash flooding. For your Thursday, 50% chance for thunderstorms, a high around 85, 88 on Friday, and a slight chance to see rain pop up, but you're probably not going to see it. Probably not going to see it on the weekend either, but there is still a 20% chance for Saturday and Sunday. Right now in Jonesboro, it's 81 degrees with fair skies. So many awesome people in chat tonight on NEA Report, and I just wanted to send a special shout out to everyone that's sending us super cool messages in the middle of the show, especially Rick, who said, I believe you found your calling. Keep calling out the corrupt, my friend. You know, what's interesting is we call out the corrupt so that we have credibility when we tell you that an officer or a government official isn't corrupt, and everybody else says that they are. It's important to have credibility and to treat the viewer, the reader, the resident of Northeast Arkansas with intelligence, and that's what we do here, and it's worked out pretty well for us. Thanks for joining us tonight on NEA Report. I'm Stan Morris, and you're up to date.